Ah, welcome. Warm yourself by the fire. Have a seat or snuggle up in your favorite spot and let me tell you a story. But first, please subscribe, like, and share. And now, John Bartendale, the Piper, by S. Baring-Gould. In the reign of King Charles I, a strolling musician, a poor piper, named John Bartendale, was brought in 1634 before the assizes and was convicted of a felony. He received sentence and on March 27th was hanged on the gallows outside Micklegate Bar in York. There were no houses there at the time, and it was open country. After he had remained swinging for 3/4 of an hour and was to all appearance dead, he was cut down and buried near the place of execution. The officers of justice had accomplished their work carelessly in both particulars, as it afterwards transpired, for he had neither been properly hanged nor properly buried. Earth has a peculiar, invigorating, and restorative effect, as has been recently discovered, and patients suffering from debility are by some medical men nowadays placed in earth baths that with the most salutary effects. In the case of gangrened wounds, a little earth has been found efficacious in promoting healthy action of the skin. John Bartendale was now to experience the advantages of an earth bath. That same day, in the afternoon, a gentleman, one of the Vavasours of Hazelwood, was riding by when he observed the earth moving in a certain place. He ordered his servant to alight. He himself descended from his horse, and together they threw off the mound and discovered the unfortunate piper alive. He opened his eyes, sat up, and asked where he was and how he came there. Mr. Vavasour and his servant helped him out of the grave and seated him on his side. The servant was sent for water and other restoratives, and before long the news had spread out about Micklegate that the poor piper was come to life again. A swarm of wandering and sympathizing people poured out to congratulate John the Piper on his resurrection and to offer their assistance. A conveyance was obtained, and as soon as Bartendale was in sufficient condition to be moved, he was placed in it, covered with Mr. Vavasour's cloak, for he had been stripped by the executioner before he was laid in the earth, and was removed again to York Castle. It was rather hard that the poor fellow, after he had obtained his release, should have been returned to his prison, but there was no help for it. The resurrection of the piper was no secret, otherwise Mr. Vavasour would doubtlessly have removed him privately to a place of security till he was recovered and then have sent him into another part of the country. At the following assizes, Bartendale was brought up again. It was a nice point at law whether the man could be sentenced to execution again after the sheriff had signed his affidavit, and that man had been hanged till he was dead. Mr. Vavasour was naturally reluctant to supply the one link in the chain of evidence which established the identity of the prisoner with the piper, who had been hanged and buried for felony. He made earnest intercession that the poor fellow might be reprieved. Popular sympathy was on his side, and the judge was disposed to mercy, and Bartendale was accorded a full and free pardon, the judge remarking that the case was one in which the Almighty seemed to have interfered in mercy to frustrate the ends of human justice, and that therefore he was not disposed to reverse the decree of Providence accorded to the piper, and a prolongation of his days on earth. Drunken Barnaby, in his Book of Travels, alludes to Bartendale when he stops at York. Here, a piper apprehended, was found guilty and suspended, being led to fatal gallows. Boys did cry, "Where is thy bellows? Ever must thou seek thy turning?" He answered, "For all your cunning, you may fail in your prediction, which did happen without fiction. For cut down and quick interred, earth rejected what was buried. Half alive or dead he arises, got a pardon next assizes, and in York continued blowing, yet a sense of goodness showing." After his wonderful deliverance, the poor fellow returned as a hostler and lived very honestly afterwards. When asked to describe his sensations on being hanged, he said that when he was turned off, flashes of fire seemed to dart before his eyes, and were succeeded by darkness and a state of insensibility. On a personal note, from what I can derive, this is based on a true account. How true it is, I can't really say. So many stories from those days had a tendency to be a little outlandish. But during this time period, events of this nature were also not uncommon. The dead are not always dead. The end.